hasn't it? Property assessment with the storm, with Irma, what happened. And of course, in that assessing, it's not up to us to determine the value of anything we might have lost or repairing it. We invite in someone who is obviously removed from our situation and knows all the facts and is extremely objective in the decision making, and they are called an insurance adjuster. They represent the people who underwrite what they determine is the value of your property. Well, this is how that conversation usually goes, does it not? Oh, we had leakage right over here. Right here we had some leakage. Well, you know what? It looks a little stained around the outside. I think that was probably there before the storm. Well, what about this over here? We got a few shingles. Well, you know, I'm looking up there. That roof looks a little old. Those are going to come off anyway. And the steeple. Yeah, that steeple was bound to come down sooner or later. A little breeze, it was going to fall over anyway. I think that was an act of God. Is that how it goes? You know, you see, you go, well, there's water stains up there, and they drain down to there. And the person says, no, 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 I'm pretty sure they started at the bottom and they worked their way up. You have hurricane and wind, but you do not have flood. Is that how it goes? Yeah. Same picture, same story, and the value of what you're talking about depends on what? Which side you're on. Which side you're on. Years ago, I had two cars. When Gene and I lived in Colorado, I had two cars that were damaged by hail. You know, we get hurricanes, they get hail. And I had a 1984 Subaru. It was probably like the year 1987. Anyway, this Subaru was, I loved it. I just loved it. You know, it was one of those kind of manly looking Subarus, you know, with the four-wheel drive, and you could take it in the mountains. I loved that car. And it had a lot of low mileage, looked good, had a lot of good years ahead of it, till the hail came. Made it look like a golf ball, right? Well, you call up your insurance. That's why you have insurance, right? To help you replace the vehicle. I'd like to keep the vehicle. Let's fix it. And, you know, I think the resale value on this car is fixed up probably about $5,000 or $6,000. That's my guess. Maybe a little more if I'm lucky. The insurance company gets out their little books and they look at it and they say, $2,500 totaled, done, gone. Now, if a car is totaled, you can't reinsure it. So you can't drive that car. It's of no value at all. Well, it depends on what side you're on, does it not? What the value of that car is. It was obviously worth a lot more to me than it was to my insurance company. Well, I think if you can step back and look at this parable today, it's not really about dollars and cents. It isn't. It's about worth. It's about what God says we are worth. It's about what God says makes us worthy in life, and not with a dollar value, but with a sense of worth, with a sense of purpose, with a sense of satisfaction at the end of the day. And the interpretation even of this parable depends upon who's hearing it and what your background is. As a preacher who's explored this text many times over 35 years, I can tell you that this sermon and the sermon I would preach and the way the sermon is heard depends on whether my congregation is blue collar or white collar, union or corporate management. You know, everything should be fair, everything should be worked out. We need to arrange a contract, and on the other side, they fight the contract. I mean, that is the nature, and how you hear this depends upon the context that you find yourself in life. Now let's move through the parable. If you can accept that, or at least be objective enough to give it consideration. The man owns the property, he goes down to day labor and he says, I need some workers. And he finds some people just hanging around. That's literally what the Greek text says. They're just hanging around. So he picks out maybe the most able-bodied, I don't know, he picks it out, and he says to them, I will give you $1 for the day. And they go, all right. And they work through the day. Now, when he goes back at 9 o'clock, and he goes back at 3 o'clock, and he goes back at 5 o'clock, he does exactly the same thing. The difference is, all he says is, I'm going to give you a fair wage. It's a different kind of agreement, is it not? And the ones at 5 o'clock that go, it's very interesting, but the Greek doesn't say they were hanging around. The Greek says nobody chose them. It's not that they didn't want to work. Nobody gave them the opportunity to work. They might have worked all day if somebody had got them sooner. It doesn't say. It just says at the end of the day, they were still there looking for work and were glad to do the opportunity when it presented itself. Now, I have to say, if I worked all day in the Florida sun and some Johnny-come-lately worked only a short time and we were paid the same, I would be a little bit grumpy. Anybody here agree with that? Do I hear an amen? No, that wasn't very adamant, right? If I worked all day, I would be a little disturbed that somebody who only worked an hour got the same. But I was never guaranteed more. I was never guaranteed more, and you either had a sound verbal agreement by saying yes or by your actions. And so there was this agreement that took place. Nobody broke a contract. No one is entitled to get more. You know, it's like when my kids are at my house, they don't like everything I do, and I say to them, my house, my rules. That's the manager side. Or, as someone reminded me this week, the golden rule, those that have the gold make the rules. Right? You see, so what once again, we have, it depends on which side you're on, and it depends how you look at this, and there are so many questions, unanswered questions here. That's why somebody at the men's prayer breakfast said we'd be better off if we just cut this one out of the Bible. That's what Jefferson did. You know, he cut out anything he really didn't agree with, and he got his own Bible. But why would we do that? Why would we want to eliminate this? Because it challenges us? Because it makes us uncomfortable? Because maybe we have to think about what is the meaning behind this? Remember, we all come to this text because we have been influenced and raised in a society influenced by Adam Smith and Milton Friedman. But if we lived somewhere else, it would be entirely different. One of the big problems when Chrysler merged with Daimler in Germany a few years back was this exact same thing. When they came together, the executives from Chrysler in the United States made millions and millions, and the executives of an equal level in Germany made maybe several $100,000. It's a whole different sense of value that collided. But my challenge this morning in preaching is not them or anyone else. My challenge is trying to bring this text home to us. And the question it brings home to me that I want to present to you is, when we read this story, why is it always about dollars and cents? Why is it always about cost? Why is it always about worth? Why do we make everything in life monetary? When I was a kid, we collected baseball cards because they were baseball cards. Is that same true today? When my parents bought a house, it was so they had a place to sleep at night. Period. Can we say the same is true today? People buy houses, and the first question they ask is, am I getting a good price? Will it appreciate? It's always about cost. We always ascribe something to that. We even do it to our spouses. What's my spouse worth? I'm not going there. But you know, that's what life insurance is it not? How much are you worth? What do you put a dollars and cents worth? When the schools are destroyed in Puerto Rico or in Mexico, is it just about the dollars and cents of rebuilding them? Or is something else of value and worth lost? If the church had been destroyed, would it just have been how much does it cost us to put up a similar facility? Or is there a value that can be lost and destroyed in relationships and support and caring and nurture, those things that are so intangible? And yet, let's be honest, that's what the church is about. Not about the building. The building helps us to facilitate those other things. And that's it. How much are we worth to ourselves and to others? That's really the question here. For me, the central challenges of Jesus' story, when placed in context, is what the king or the estate manager promised each worker, regardless of the length of their labor. He said, he gives them at the end of the day 1 denarius, $1. What is that? That's enough to get them through the day. That's all that is. He's not giving them a fortune. He's giving them enough to come back tomorrow and to do the very same. Who in the world would begrudge someone for getting enough to live? That's the question. Who would begrudge them for their daily bread? Is that not what we pray for all the time? Give us this day enough to get us through this day. The thing is, we always seem to want more. We're always measuring ourselves against other people. Even rich people are always measuring themselves against rich, and richer people. We always place a great worldly value on our labor and our accomplishments, right? I should get paid more. You would agree, wouldn't you? I should get paid more. I'm worth more. Well, according to who and against what, right? And God seems to be telling us, Christ is telling his fellow people here, that there is value simply in work. That there is value simply in having a purpose in life. And that none of us will be happy or satisfied or fulfilled in our existence until we realize that at the end of the day, it's not about what you earned, it's about what you did, that your value and your worth is worth everything. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. At the end of the day, you know, I am very, very sensitive to the workers at the end of the day. Because I'm getting older. Oh, I'm serious. You know, when you're getting older, you think about that. Your worth diminishes because you're older, not because you can not do the work, but people look at you and they say, you're not worth as much. That should resonate with many of us. I am sensitive to the workers at 5 o'clock because I have a disability. I probably wouldn't be one selected early in the day. And I'm grateful that I have a job and that there's still value and worth for me. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. I hear frequently with the construction that's been going on for, I don't know, since the birth of Christ. You know, people will come and say, you know, it'd been done a lot sooner if those guys wouldn't be standing around all day. Well, I see heads nod up and down. I know where people are coming. And I have to smile at that because I do drive by and some days I think exactly the same thing. And then I'm reminding myself, I wouldn't want to do that work. I wouldn't want to be out in the sun. They could not. Oh, there it is. They could not pay me enough to do that. And then again, I'm sensitive to it because for years, 35 to be precise, people have said to me, well, you only work an hour a week. It depends on what side you're at and what kind of power you give to others to determine what your worth is. You know, my goal is, like football player, to be a franchise preacher. Maybe I need to explain that one to you, but anyway. Now, we put values on these things, but who does it? And do we let that direct our own thinking about ourselves? We were meant to be productive. We were created to be contributors. Our real value is not to be found and measured in what we accumulate, but in our productivity. I will tell you, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons the economy in the United States is so difficult, is in the last 30 years, more people have figured out they can make money by investing money than by producing products. One man's thought, it won't ever get me elected, but I said it. You see, our value is not measured by what we accumulate, but how productive we are. How we contribute, how we take advantage of the opportunities, whether we're able-bodied or less. Do we do what we can do? Because there's always something to be done. Beethoven did his best work when he was blind. Everybody loved Stevie Wonder. Mendelssohn created his greatest compositions when he was deaf, and Robert Louis Stevenson wrote The Great Adventures of Treasure Island and was bedridden. You see, the value and the worth that we have in life is so much greater. We shouldn't give it to others. How much is enough? When does my goal of determining my worth come at the price of somebody else being worth less? And do we live our lives, really, do we live our lives valuing ourselves by the bottom line at the Bank of America or the bottom line of God's grace? Because how we think about this will make a difference at the end of the day, whether we're satisfied with our existence or not. It will make a difference at the end of our lives, whether we feel that we have accomplished and been worth something or not. The question really becomes, what's your gold standard? What is your gold standard for your existence? That's the issue at stake. Who and what do you really work for? Because when you answer that, you will answer wherein you place your worth. Amen.